Hey everyone! If you know anything about me, you'd know that I'm a big fan of internet short films. I've made some of them myself, and I've talked about many of them in numerous videos in the past. I saw some really interesting short films this year from various creators, and I decided I wanted to try something new and talk about a few short films in a video format. I'll be talking about 5 different short films from 2019, including Ralph the Movie Maker's Golden Hour and Chris Stuckman's Notes from Melanie, but I also want to talk about some short films you probably haven't seen, and maybe you'll check them out and find them interesting. Without further ado, let's start with the video. About a year ago, I did a video on Ralph the Movie Maker's movie, Lover. I talked about how I was very inspired with some of his work in the past, like King Candy and The High. Now he has a new movie, Golden Hour, which is pretty much a story about someone who gets caught up in dealing weed around the neighborhood with an old friend. I admire the fact that Ralph grew out his hair and made himself look like a drug junkie for this movie, but the film itself really disappointed me, honestly. And this is the only film in the list that I'm going to be talking a little bit negatively about. He's essentially made 4 different movies about a young man living a double life of crime. The High was a very depressing movie in which he was a high school student dealing cocaine on the side with his friend, and the law eventually catches up to him. King Candy was a dark comedy with a lot of snappy edits and cynical humor, getting darker and darker as the film progressed, as the main character spirals out of control with power. He's a high school student selling candy for charity, but secretly keeping all the money for himself. It has clear similarities to The High, but does a lot to make it feel fresh, and I think is his best work to this day. In the end, rather than losing, he gets away with everything, instead of what the character goes through in The High. Lover has a very noir feel, very dark and somber, about a man who is secretly a sociopath murderer falling in love with a girl. His murders continue and he gets away with it. Golden Hour has some of the comedy of King Candy, but overall it's pretty much just a remake of The High without any of the same effectiveness. They even have the exact same 2 main actors as The High, playing very similar roles as they did in that film. It's like he's trying to remake one of his older films because he's not proud of it. The High was about the horrors of the drug business and depression and how it can quickly ruin someone's life. Golden Hour is just a story without any stakes or characters. It's just a guy selling weed with nothing else going on with the plot except for something with his dog. Eventually, similar to King Candy or Lover, it's implied that he gets away with everything after evading capture from the cops, but I didn't feel any tension or any emotion whatsoever for this character or this plot because there's no substance. In The High, you understand why he'd sell drugs, because of his awful family life at home, but the character in Golden Hour just does it for no particular reason that the film tells you, so we don't connect with him at all, and it's basically just Ralph playing himself selling weed. The acting is fine, there's some good scenes where it depicts characters getting high, and the filmmaking and production value is mostly commendable, except for some really bad dubbing, dubbing that is basically on the level of The Room. I'm not even kidding, the dubbing in this movie is horrendous.
Casey, what's good?
Nothing, actually. My dog went missing.
Your dog went missing?
Yeah, so if you've seen him around or anything, just let me know. My number's on there.
How'd this happen?
Had this happen? I left him in the backyard. I checked him again, he was gone.
He just ran away?
Yeah, just ran away.
Do you need help looking for him?
Right now?
I mean, I'm not doing anything, so we can just go around and hang flyers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Here, you take half of these. I'll take the rest.
Good, got it, great, good.
It's surrounded by a paper-thin plot with no reason to care about what's going on. I'd like to see Ralph do something different next time, because he seems to be stuck on himself playing a lead character that lives a double life of crime and does drugs. There's drugs in all of these movies. The High, King Candy, and Lover were all able to differentiate themselves from one another and keep the plot fresh, while recycling some familiar elements. And that's totally fine if you're able to do something worthwhile with it. Golden Hour seems to be set on recycling Ralph's other films without doing anything substantial or new, and it was disappointing for me. I'll always be interested in seeing what other films he puts out though. I really hope he can improve on this one. The next short I want to talk about is Notes from Melanie, the first short film that Chris Stuckman has finally released to the public. Chris Stuckman was a huge inspiration for me, and if I never came across his channel, I wouldn't be here right now. He taught me so much of what I know about films, and he's kind of like a mentor for me, even though I've never actually met him in person. I've actually seen this movie get quite a bit of flack, which surprised me, and this is a case where I highly disagree with most criticisms. I think this is a really funny and heartwarming film that's clearly very personal to Chris in all the best ways. He stated a few times that Joe and Melanie represent 2 different sides of his personality. Joe is the goofy, childish side that just wants to film things. He doesn't care if it's good or not, he just wants to film, and he's super inspired. Melanie is the adult, meticulous side of Chris, the side of him that pokes holes in his own scripts and agonizes over them, perfecting every single word on the page. The movie is about how both sides can work together and make something great. You shouldn't try to eliminate one side, you should try to keep both sides together and strike a balance between them. They don't work as well without the other, and this is all portrayed in two people who used to date each other. The Joe character also has a dilemma where he's not good at doing anything original. He always cites how amazing other movies are, and how he doesn't have to do anything new if he can just build off what works. Why do something new if you can build off something that's already critically acclaimed?
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there. Taxi Driver got 4 Oscar nominations, Melanie. 4. I mean, it's considered in the top 2, at least top 3 of Scorsese's career. Why risk new when I can just build on what works? All right,
Through this side of Joe, I'm reminded of people like J.J. Abrams. J.J. almost always directs a movie that builds upon already established source material and is a lot of fan service. For me, he can often do that really well and offer something fresh with that concept, like Force Awakens, the Star Trek 2009 movie, and Mission Impossible 3, but sometimes it really hinders his films, with Star Trek Into Darkness being way too set on making homages to Wrath of Khan, and Rise of Skywalker pandering to people who didn't like The Last Jedi, and constantly repeating and referencing the past without doing anything new, just being fan service. There's a ton of other examples of directors that fall into this sort of thing, and to me, Joe also very much represented that. If you're a writer, I think this is a movie that can easily resonate with you, as it resonated with me. Especially the part where Joe has a brain blast and ideas start spitting out of him. He gets super excited and inspired as this sudden burst of creativity comes to him, and I can totally relate to that euphoric feeling of inspiration. The actor Majin Hyder is suitably over the top, which fits the tone of this film. Both actors go a little bit exaggerated, and it works because it's a comedy. The score by Aaron J. Morton is really great, and the movie clips with Flickpick are wonderful. I can't wait for Auditorium 6 whenever he releases that, and whatever else Chris has in store for us. Thank you, Chris, for continuing to teach and inspire me. The next movie I want to talk about is Hammer Boys, and I doubt any of you have heard about this movie. If you watch my really long videos on the Rich Alvarez channel I did about 1.5 years ago, you may recognize this guy, Austin Stevenson, who is a frequent collaborator with Rich Alvarez, and he was Brock in Stupid Mario Bros. He was also the star of their collaborative film, The Clicking Noise. He actually followed me on Instagram, and we've had some really good discussions on there. Nicest guy ever. He hasn't been involved with Rich Alvarez for about 6 years, and he's gone off and done his own thing on his own channel with Dane Cook, who's famous for playing Ash Ketchum in Stupid Mario Bros. Hammer Boys is a 40-minute horror comedy about a really socially awkward guy who tries to cover up a murder he committed, and his friend is his accomplice who doesn't like what he's helping his friend do. They throw a party and try to socialize with the cool kids while still trying to cover up the murder in that same house. I won't spoil anything else, but it progressively gets more and more insane as it goes on. The film is really disturbing. This is no longer PG-rated, childish, stupid Mario Bros. This literally has parts that I think might qualify as NC-17, not even joking. There is parts that are just too much. I don't usually get that disturbed by movies, but this really rubbed me the wrong way, and that's commendable, because that's exactly what they were going for. It's really funny and witty while also being disturbing as all hell, and a lot of that is to do with Austin Stevenson's fantastic performance. This guy is gold in this movie, playing someone who is clearly not sane, and murdering is just something he shrugs off as a socially acceptable thing, like there's no problem with that. I love him in his comedic roles, but with Clicking Noise his character was very wooden, so his performance was also wooden because it reflected the character's bad writing. In this, I can see that with the right role and with the right script, this guy can do some amazing stuff, and this is easily the best acting I've seen him do. Dane is also a really fun presence, and seeing Ash and Brock together in a sick, twisted murder film is really fun. I want to support short films that not a lot of people would know about, so check out Hammer Boys. Super cool to see Austin spread his rings outside of the Rich Alvarez channel, because this is totally where he shines. Another short film I want to quickly shout out is a film called 10 Lords A-Leaping from Michael Evans. This guy makes really good horror stuff and deserves way more views. This one's about a guy who accidentally attends a service led by a really creepy cult, and they force him to do some pretty disturbing things. Really well acted, really creepy, and it might be my favorite work from Michael Evans. Check it out as well as the rest of the channel, cause he deserves it. Alright, that about does it. I'm planning on doing a ranked video on the not so large amount of 2019 movies I saw, so stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. Check out the short films in the description. Bye-bye.